Hello and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'm Chuck Benoit with The Nature of Things, where we are realigning God, government, and natural law so that we might restore our American Republic. This morning, I would like to give a shout out to Barbara Boyd and Susan Kokinda of Promethean Action. I was introduced to them around November of last year, and they brought a perspective on the global economy and global empires that has made a lot of sense to me. Because I've been asking the question, who are they? And I started by noting that the three presidents in my lifetime who've attempted to jumpstart the American economy have been either shot or assassinated. They shot and assassinated John F. Kennedy, and they shot Ronald Reagan, and they, of course, shot Donald J. Trump. And I've since learned that there is more than likely a they behind the assassination of Abraham Lincoln and William McKinley as well. These presidents have been targets because of the American system of economics, which is fundamentally different than the old British system of imperialism. I've answered that question with they are globalists. And although that is close, Barbara and Susan have made a strong case that they are the global banking system, a system based on the idea that people are mere animals meant to be managed, and the managers should get very well paid for doing so. The American system is based on our inalienable rights given to us by a creator God, and the spoils of our labor should be ours. So Barbara and Susan would say that the attacks on our presidents are an attack on the opportunity of prosperity for the common man, and an attack on the rights given to us by God, the God of the Bible, by extension. So if you follow Sidney Powell, you know that Promethean Action has found its way into her newsletters recently as well. And I'd like you to check them out. I'll put a link in the comments shortly. So for this morning, welcome, Mr. Levine.
Good morning, Chuck. Promethean Action. I'll have to put that on my radar.
Yeah, give it a shot. um, they've got they do a 15-minute piece on, I think, Tuesdays and Thursday, maybe Tuesdays and Saturdays, and then a big long piece on Thursdays. The Thursday is about 2 hours long, and I can't seem to take the time to get into that. But they've been around for quite a little while. A couple of older ladies. I struggle saying that because I'm older now myself. They're probably right in my general age range, maybe a little older. I don't know. But they've been around for a long time, and they seem to have a very interesting perspective on what's happening and why President Donald J. Trump is so hated by the world. So with that all said, we're going to jump into HJR 203 this morning. We
House
have
Joint
the
Resolution 203. Exactly.
right on. Basically, it's a House Joint Resolution, and it's talking about property taxes. So let me get in front of me what we're looking at here. And do you have any opening comments, Mike?
I just want everybody to remember that um, taxes are handled in the Constitution of the state of Florida, not legislatively. So basically, this legislation has to do with amending the Florida Constitution, not about passing a law. And in my research, I was just kind of poking around to see what the HJR, House Joint Resolution, I just did a little bit of homework on that, and I learned, provided the information that I received is correct, that the governor doesn't have to sign an HJR. If it comes out of the House and the Senate, then it'll go on the ballot in November. So that's pretty interesting, right? That's something the governor doesn't have to sign. A
Yeah, very
House
good.
joint resolution or a Senate joint resolution does not have to be signed by the governor. So the point, underlying point, is that taxation is handled in the Constitution, not legislatively. So therefore, what we're talking about today is the possibility of a constitutional amendment, not the passage of a law.
So there are other related bills on this subject, and there are several of them. I could go over the numbers here: HJR 201, 205, 207, 209, 211, 213. We're looking at this one because it's got the most activity around it. Is that what they're?
Yeah, it's been put into the Ways and Means Committee. It went to the State Affairs Committee, and both of those committees offered committee substitutes for the bill that Representative Miller from Brevard, who is the sponsor of this bill, originally filed. And, there are quite a few proposed amendments to this bill too, which means the other legislators, particularly committee members, are very active in working on this bill. So, the more activity the bill has, then the more likely it is to come to the floor or not. But certainly, if nobody's paying attention to it, then the likelihood of it passing on the floor in the House is a lot less. So as I went through the various different bills that you just read off to decide, how to address this, I thought we could have gone through the high points of each one, but that could be confusing. So I thought maybe we'll just go out and roll out kind of the front runner, Chuck.
Yeah. So also. Um, there have been some substitutes to the bill, and we're going to actually look at the committee substitute number 2. Um, and there has been several amendments to it. And uh, Representative Overdorf seems to be the most interested in making amendments. He's filed 9 amendments himself, as well as Representative Bartleman and Woodson have offered amendments. Now, just from my background, I heard Representative Overdorf talking about legislation for the whole idea of property tax reduction, and it's really not a lot like what is here. This is his original comments in this particular meeting was wanting to benefit people who've been around for a long time. So based on how long you owned your home, your taxes would each year get less and less. And this is a completely different uh, there's a different view completely, and it has nothing to do with how long you've lived in your house, but just over the course of time, things are changing. I I guess that was a little surprising to me, and possibly what Representative Overdorf is trying to amend. But
Okay. I'm not sure whether Overdorf submitted his own bill or not. That'd be pretty interesting to find out. We could do that real quick with a quick AI search, right? But I like Overdorf's plan better than this. I don't believe that people who move into the state of Florida from other states in their retirement should get uh, a free ride on property taxes and, right out of the box. I want this to be for people who have contributed to the Florida economy their whole life. So I like a 25-year buy down. And if you insert that concept into Overdorf's theory that you just laid out, but I don't know whether Overdorf has submitted a bill or not. But if he wants it, Chuck, he needs to submit a bill. He's a state rep. He should do that.
that's the truth. That's the truth. Well, let's go ahead and get into this HDR 203. Right off the bat, there's exemption on taxation for homestead properties, exempting the first 25,000 of assessed value. And then from $25,001 to 150,000, that is, I'm sorry, did I say that wrong? The first 25,000 is taxed.
Correct.
And then from 25,000 to 150,000, $25,001. That's what's exempt, except
Right.
for school district levies, which will be assessed at the tax at the full value of the property. So
Right.
school taxes aren't changed at all. And the amount of value of the homestead property exempt from tax shall be adjusted annually. So there's going to be an annual cost of living kind of adjustment.
Inflation, based on inflation, Chuck.
Right, right,
Yeah, cost of living. But based on
right.
inflation, they CPI, Consumer Price Index, they have a couple of metrics in there that could be used.
So we have taxation on the first 25,000. Then we have another 125,000 that's not taxed, and then the next thing it says is that each year for the next 9 years, beginning in January 2028, obviously that's assuming this is all passed this year, the value exempt from taxes will actually increase by $100,000 a year for the next 9 years. So that puts us at like 1,025,000 of tax-free uh, property. Is that how you read it?
Well, it goes even farther, Chuck, and it says at the end of the 9-year period, then the exemption shall be equal to the value of the property. So it effectively zeroes out property tax on homesteaded property completely by 2037. The year is 2037, which there would be no tax on homesteaded property, Chuck.
And that you're right, and that goes well beyond the 1,025,000 that we kind of edge our
Whatever it
way up
is,
to.
whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So the
So
question really becomes, the root question, Chuck, is should you pay taxes on your home? I mean, I remember, you go to the grocery store, you don't pay taxes on food, necessities, right? The government doesn't tax you on necessities. Is a home a necessity? I say that it is. Okay. So if it's your primary residence, you should not have to pay taxes on it. That's my point of view. Now, how do you get there from where we are? Because the interesting part about it is, Chuck, none of these bills tell us how we're going to replace the income. So if you're a county commissioner, you're shaking in your boots, right? You're about to have a big, what I like to call an income ectomy with no method for replacing the money. And of course, Chuck, as we go through this bill, we're going to find out that the state of Florida also prohibits the local governments from reducing spending in certain categories. We'll get there. But my point is that overall, yes, I agree. We should not have to pay taxes on our primary residence for sure. The question becomes, how do pay the bills? And of course, you'll also notice, Chuck, that no one ever talks about reducing spending in any of these talks. And I don't care what the subject is, reducing spending is never an option. And that is just totally insulting, in my opinion, for anybody in government to say that there's no room for reductions in spending is, I'm going to use the word out to lunch. They have, again, I was talking to a young man who's running for city council in Mount Dora, and you talk about the spending; it's unbelievable. But nobody says, "Hey, we're going to cut spending," and nobody reviews constitutional officers' budgets. They roll into the county commission meeting with a number, and the county commission either grants it or doesn't. That's it. There's no study. There's no review. And they're, the financial managers in all these institutions should be presenting to the public, making public presentations on and an analysis of how much money they get and where it comes from and how much money they spend and where it goes. And they should have to do a in-depth analysis and presentation on their spending in every funding cycle, Chuck.
there you go. So the next section here is local government prohibitions of reductions in local first responder funding. So beginning with 27-28 local fiscal year, the total funding provided by each local government for services provided by law enforcement, firefighters, and other first responders as provided by general law may not be less than such jurisdictional total budgeted amounts for such services in either the 25-26 or the 26-27 local fiscal years, whichever is higher, notwithstanding reductions in ad valorem revenue that may result from the amendment to Article 7 approved by voters, and it'll be approved November 3rd of this year. So you want to comment on that, Mike?
I do. Basically what you're seeing here is that the state of Florida has no confidence in local government to manage their budgets. That's what that they're saying. Basically, we don't trust you. We don't have any confidence in you in managing your own budget. So while you got our chief financial officer, Blaise Golia, traveling the state of Florida, with his Doge program, telling us how many cities and how many counties are overspending by billions of dollars. Yet the Florida legislature comes out and says, we're going to punish you if you reduce spending on first responders. So when was the last time that actually happened? I wonder when the last time a first responder agency in the state of Florida actually got less money in the upcoming funding period than they did in the previous. I'm saying to you, I'll bet the answer is never. So why is the state of Florida find that they need to codify this into the Constitution, Chuck, not statute, but into the Constitution, that local governments can't reduce their spending on first responders? Are first responders the best money managers we have? I wonder. So anyway, no disrespect to first responders, but to restrict local government from adjusting their budgets as needed in any area of spending, I find to be offensive, Chuck.
Well, and also, I mean, from the other side of things, if the funding isn't coming in, then although those are
Right.
minimal numbers, they're not going to go up, right?
It ain't minimal, Chuck. When you start looking at the actual numbers we're talking about, these are huge numbers.
Oh, I'm not
Huge
saying
numbers.
I'm not saying they're not huge numbers. What I'm saying is, by law, these whichever is higher, 25.6 or 26.7, all of a sudden could be the maximum because there's no more money coming in. And so I guess that's what I'm saying. So I don't know.
I hear you loud and clear. I guess, but every county commission, every city council has its own personality based on, there's only 5, right? In Lake County, there's only 5 commissioners, right? Take a look at your city councils. There's typically 5, members. So you got 5 people there, and whatever their perspective is on spending is what's going to carry the day. And then you've got, city managers and county managers and stuff like that who actually are responsible for carrying out, the instructions that come from the, publicly elected representatives on those boards. So I just find it, I'll be honest, I'm really disappointed, and which is a weak word, I should say. I guess I'm, numb enough by all that the state of Florida is doing that I don't get angry anymore. I'm just highly disappointed that the state of Florida doesn't give local government the credibility to manage their own money. And I find that to be, as I said before, offensive, Chuck.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot more to this particular bill that we've highlighted here. We've kind of discussed the idea that by what was it, 2037, there won't be any more taxes on homesteaded property, and that the local governments are prohibited from attacking first responders in any way. Was there anything else that
Not
kind of jumped
attacking, Chuck. We're not attacking first responders, okay? We love first responders, but
well,
we
yeah,
just
but the
don't,
point, I
nobody gets a
guess,
blank check. No one gets a blank check, Chuck.
I agree.
That's
I agree.
crazy.
That's true. I'm just kind of pointing to the bill itself, and the bill is definitely protecting first responders, uh, at least for a while. I just keep saying to myself, well, this maximum or this minimum that they're um, forcing on the counties will actually at some point be the maximum. And that kind of
Could be.
reeks to me of defunding the police at some point in the future. So, so that's kind of what I'm
I don't
saying.
know. I get it. Florida, everything changes, right? We're about to get a new governor. So Florida will not be the same in 2027 as it is in 2026 because we'll have a new governor. That'll change a lot. That whoever the new governor is will assert their value proposition over the state, and the relationship between the new governor and the legislature is also going to be very, very interesting. So when we're out um, interviewing governor candidates, I would suggest that they should have to answer the question, how do you plan to get your agenda accomplished through the legislature? Because a lot of the gubernatorial candidates have never dealt with the legislature before. So, um, not all, of course, but some. So that's a really big part of it. You can have, and people can, I know that I'm shifting the conversation now to the gubernatorial election, but it's not easy, but it's easier to stand at a podium or walk around a room with a microphone in your hand and give the audience a dream sheet of what you'd like to see happen. I think that eliminating property taxes, as much as I'm support on homesteaded properties, is as much as I support the concept, I've seen absolutely zero rationale for how we're going to pay for it. And then if the argument is that eliminating taxes on homesteaded properties is okay because you have overspending in government, well, then how can you tie the local um, governing bodies hands as it relates to managing expenses? I just don't understand that at all. And then you've got the school board and law enforcement. Those are your two biggest expenditures, and that are paid for by property taxes. So I don't get it. I just don't know where the Florida legislature is. And of course, it could very well be that the reason we're having this discussion is because we're in an election cycle. And this is red meat for the base, Chuck. There's not a single, I'm a realtor, right? And we know that every single time there is an initiative to lower property taxes, the public votes for it. I don't care what your stripes are. So to me, this could very well be um, just political. I have a word in my mind that I'm not going to say. I'll use the word manipulation, gaslighting. This could very well be political gaslighting. And it could be that when the legislative session's over, none of these property tax reduction bills gets passed. And therefore, we may find out that in November on our ballot, when we would have to approve what the legislature has recommended, there could be nothing on our ballot at all about reducing property taxes because nobody can find the right formula. And you can see with the amendments, all the various different bills, which equals different approaches to lowering property taxes. Nobody's on the same page now. And then you're seeing, particularly Overdorf, with a bunch of these 9 amendments and stuff, which, the amendments are fairly simple if you take a look at them. It's not like he's rewriting the law in most cases. But I'm just skeptical that we will, in fact, pass any of this stuff in the session. And I'm afraid that nothing will be on the ballot in November because we haven't even addressed how we're going to pay for it, Chuck.
Right, right. Well, I just took a minute to look up the next bill down, the HJ 205, HJR 205, and I scrolled down to the first area where something is actually added into the law, and obviously I don't know where else to put this, but just say in this particular bill, HCR 205, it says that every person who has attained age 65 and who has legal or equitable title to real estate goes to shall be exempt. So I'm pointing that only to say that you're right. They have no idea. We have no idea what's going to end up on the ballot. And as we noted earlier in our conversation, we went to this particular bill 203 because there's so much activity with it. Um, and again, to your point, how do you pay for this? How
But
are
here's
they
the
going to
next
pay for
step,
this?
Chuck.
And
Here's the
and
next
why
step.
wouldn't that be in the same legislation?
Well, because they're different sponsors, different sponsors take different approaches. But at the end of the day, if you exempt taxation from people 65 years old or older, you're just going to get a flood of people retiring in Florida, Chuck. And that's the whole thing with the developer class again. Of course, why wouldn't you want that? Right? If you do that, well, then you're just going to get people from all over the country, actually all over the world. Anybody that can achieve resident status will get the deduction. So what does that do for the people in Florida who've lived your whole life here? You built the economy here, and now if you're 65, you're going to get, exempted out of property taxes, and there's no minimum resident requirement, nothing. So if you move here from any place else and buy a house and you live there and qualify as your primary residence, you're going to get no tax, even though you're new to the neighborhood. You built none of this. So I'm hard against that. I'd rather give the exemption to my kids. I'd rather say if you're between, uh, 18 and 40, you get a tax exemption, right?
Yeah, there you
I
go.
mean, the kids can't afford housing, Chuck. Kids
Yeah.
can't afford housing, and we're going to give a tax exemption to rich retirees who want to move to Florida? That sounds nuts to me.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, certainly the developers are going to get the windfall with all these people moving here. I mean, you think we have uh, too many developments going on now? We have so many. We have more developments than we have roads to put the cars on. And this kind of a bill, I think, would greatly exacerbate what's happening here. The idea that you benefit because of how long you've lived in Florida um, seems to me to make far more sense than just putting a time limit on it. In 10 years, there's going to be no property tax for anyone, or the idea that if you're 65, you don't get, you just immediately stop paying property tax. I don't know. It seems to me like this is still a major work in progress, and we're nowhere near where it would be comfortable to do.
Show me how you're going to raise $125 billion under your plan, and you have my attention. But if all you're doing, again, as I said before, eliminating property taxes in Florida is a bumper sticker. It's
Yeah.
not a policy proposal because nobody's built out the actual policy. So this is just gaslighting the base, right? Could very well be. I mean, so now it'll be very interesting to see if we get an amendment on the ballot in November related to property tax reduction. And I got news for you. The commissioners are freaking out. And that's another point, Chuck. I just really have to make this point because if I was a county commissioner, I would be storming the halls in Tallahassee, railing against these people. You explain to me how I'm going to pay the bills in my county, and I'll support your proposal. But if you can't tell me how I'm going to pay the bills in my county, then, you know, I'm going to primary you. right?
There you go. Well,
Exactly. Nobody should. This is called fiscally irresponsible.
it's hard to believe, but Mike, we are out of time. I'm going to give you a short opportunity to wind this up.
Ladies and gentlemen, politics is often the worst method by which to solve any problems. So it'd be great if our legislators were all business people and actually put a pencil to the budget, which and made sure that everything works. Okay. And respected the fact of the matter is that um, most constituents in the state of Florida get no representation in Tallahassee. This is all about special interest, and this is all about the political careers of top leadership. I'm saying the governor, obviously our CFO, et cetera. Um, they're basically just paving out the next steps of their political careers at the expense of the people of the state of Florida. And I would include this president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House. Obviously, you have Paul Renner, who's a past Speaker of the House in the gubernatorial race right now. So you can see what I'm talking about. One position leads to how do I get to the next rung on the ladder? So I'm very disappointed at the financial management and the approach to financial management that the Florida legislature has taken. And of course, I just want to roll it into growth management as well. The same disrespect coming from the state of Florida against local government is just repulsive in my mind. Sit down with people, work together, work out a plan, collaborate together, work out a plan that works for the state and the counties and the cities, and everything will be fine. And to be honest with you, Chuck, the Department of Community Affairs, which was dissolved under Governor Scott, Rick Scott, is a big part of the issue. And as we started moving away from that, we started really with more state dominance over local financial matters. And I'm opposed to that. I think the local people are the best people to solve their financial problems, Chuck.
Well, thank you, Mike Levine, and thank you all again for tuning into our twice weekly live stream. Please follow us on Facebook at Restoring Our American Republic. Check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic -ROAR. Please like and share the program. And remember, if you're unwilling to govern yourself, you will be governed by tyrants. Please, until the next time, God bless you, God bless President Donald J. Trump, and God bless America.